I parked my car on the edge of a road that didn't used to exist. A long, paved lane stretched ahead of me, lined with rows of fresh-cut grass, matching mailboxes, and exactly 50 brand-new houses. Each one had a family inside. Kids on bikes. Dogs barking in backyards. Lawns that hadn't even browned yet. My heart pounded as I stepped out and looked at the sign near the entrance. Oak Haven, a private HOA community. I stared at it. Because I knew this land. I owned this land. And I had never sold it. Not 1 acre. I reached for my phone. "Cynthia," I said to my assistant. "Call the U.S. Land Records Office. We have a situation. A big one." Because this HOA had just built a whole community. On a judge's land. And not just any judge. The chief judge of the 12th District Federal Court. 6 months earlier, the quiet before the storm. Back then, everything was calm. I had taken a sabbatical from the bench. 20 years on the federal bench had worn me down. I needed peace. So I packed up and left for Europe. A 6-month, no-contact vacation to recharge. Before leaving, I told Cynthia, just make sure my land stays untouched. No development. No leases. Nothing. The land was special. It had been in my family for generations, 85 acres just outside of Cedar Hills, Virginia. It wasn't about money. It was about roots. So when I left, it was still empty. Just trees. Birds. A wide open view of the mountains. And when I came back, it was gone. First signs of trouble. I didn't even find out right away. It started with a postcard. A glossy real estate flyer with the words, "Welcome to Oak Haven. Homes starting at just $499,999. I nearly choked on my coffee. At first, I thought it was just a mistake, maybe a new subdivision near my land. But then I flipped it over. And saw a map. My land. Lot 18. Lot 19. Lot 20. All carved up. The flyer was addressed to me, too. Special financing available for Judge William Thorne. My hands were shaking. I called Cynthia. "Get me every deed record, transaction file, and land use permit filed while I was away." She paused. "I already started." That's when I knew something was very wrong. The HOA president calls me a confused old man. I drove out to the development. Pulled in through the newly installed front gate. A man in a blue polo and khakis, HOA logo on his shirt, stepped out of a little booth. "Hey there. You a new buyer?" I looked him in the eye. "I own this land." He laughed. "No offense, sir, but this land belongs to Oak Haven HOA now. You sure you're not lost?" I stayed quiet. Then he added, "You one of those people who think the government owes them land or something?" I reached into my jacket, pulled out my ID. Federal court ID. His smile vanished. "I'll be back," I said. "With paperwork." He still smirked as I walked back to my car. But not for long. The documents don't lie, but someone else did. That night, Cynthia showed up with a binder of documents. And what we found was worse than we thought. Someone had faked a transfer. A company called Riverstone Dev LLC claimed to have bought the land 5 months earlier, while I was still overseas. But the signature on the sale? Not mine. And the notary listed? Didn't even exist. They forged the paperwork. Filed it with the county. And no one noticed. Until now. But it gets worse. Cynthia dug deeper. The Riverstone Company. A shell. 1 P.O. box. No phone number. But guess who filed the development request? Carolyn Stenson. President of the Oak Haven HOA. Former real estate agent. Known for fast-track deals and cutting corners. I looked her up. She had complaints, lawsuits, even a license suspension in another state. And now she built 50 houses. On my land. Confrontation at the HOA meeting. I walked into the Oak Haven clubhouse on a Wednesday evening. The HOA board sat in a row like school principals at detention. Carolyn was at the center, in her cream blazer and fake pearls. "We appreciate your interest, sir," she said, smiling fake. "But this is a private meeting." I walked right to the front. "I am Chief Judge William Thorne. And you have 50 homes sitting on federally documented private property." Her face froze. The room went silent. Someone coughed. Then Carolyn stood, voice shaking slightly. "Well, if you have proof, we can discuss it later through attorneys." I smiled. And slid a file onto the table. "Here's the proof. And a cease and desist letter. Starting tonight, no further construction. No sales. No leases. Any violation." I leaned forward. "We'll go straight to federal court." But that night, they broke the order. I watched them through binoculars, parked in a car just off the property line. 3 more cement trucks rolled in after midnight. Workers in hard hats under floodlights. Pouring foundations. Laying pipes. Defying a federal order. I dialed my phone. "Cynthia. Call U.S. Marshals. Right now." Because now. It wasn't just about property. It was about contempt of court. And they were about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong judge. The floodlights were blinding. The cement mixer rumbled like thunder through the night air. And the workers? They didn't even flinch when I stepped out of my car. They didn't know who I was. But they were about to. I walked right up to the foreman, clipboard in hand, hard hat tilted back. "You're trespassing on federal registered private property," I said calmly. He didn't even look up. "I go where the contracts tell me." "Who hired you?" He finally looked up. "Oak Haven HOA. Carolyn Stenson." I showed him my federal ID. His face dropped like a brick. And then he ran. The marshals arrive. 20 minutes later, 3 black SUVs rolled in. U.S. Marshals. Badges on vests. Radios buzzing. The lead officer nodded at me. "Judge Thorne." "Yes. We have the order from the clerk's office. We're authorized to stop all activity immediately. Want us to clear the site?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "And start seizing equipment." The marshals moved fast. They shut down the generator, flagged the cement truck, and ordered the crew off-site. By 3 a.m., the site was dark. And dead silent. The HOA panics. At 8 a.m. sharp, my assistant Cynthia forwarded me a string of emails. Subject line: "Urgent, stop federal interference." It was from the HOA lawyer, some guy named Lance Halperin. Probably fresh out of law school. He accused me of overreaching my authority and abusing judicial power to interfere with a private community. I responded with exactly one line. "You built 50 homes on stolen land. Enjoy explaining that to the U.S. Attorney." While preparing the official land dispute complaint, Jason, my longtime legal investigator, discovered something unbelievable. Remember the fake land sale deed filed with the county? It had a judge's approval stamp. Problem is, I know every judge in this district. And the name on that stamp? Judge Peter M. Raines. Except, there's no Judge Raines. Never was. We looked him up, ran him through federal and state databases. Nothing. The signature, the stamp, even the bar number, all fabricated. This wasn't just shady. This was criminal. Fraud. Forgery. Interstate deception. Jason looked at me and said, "You ready to take this up a level?" I nodded. Federal court in session. I filed a motion in the federal district court to freeze all sales and assets connected to Oak Haven. The judge overseeing the emergency hearing, Judge Russell, one of my old colleagues, read the file with wide eyes. "You're telling me 50 families are living on a development that's completely illegal?" he asked. I nodded. He sighed. "Bring in the board." All of them. Subpoenas were issued. Carolyn and the rest of the Oak Haven HOA board were summoned to court. One of them, a nervous man named Barry, lawyered up immediately. "Carolyn." She walked in with her chin high, like she was still in control. She had no idea what was coming. Carolyn tries to lie in court. "I assure you," she said sweetly, "we purchased the land legally through a broker. All paperwork was processed through Riverstone Development LLC. Judge Russell leaned forward. "Where is this broker now?" She stammered. We haven't been able to reach them. They may have moved." Jason handed the judge a manila folder. Inside were photos, receipts, and digital trails showing Carolyn was Riverstone. Fake business license. Fake LLC. Bank transfers from the development funds directly into her personal accounts. Carolyn went pale. Judge Russell banged his gavel. "We're freezing all HOA assets. Effective immediately. Families start asking questions." That night, the Oak Haven Community Facebook group exploded. Posts like, "Why is the clubhouse locked? Why are federal agents on our street? Did we buy a house on stolen land?" Someone posted a photo of me standing with the marshals. Under it, a caption. "Who is this man?" Cynthia made me a burner account and I replied. "The rightful owner of the land. And the chief judge of the 12th District Court." Within an hour, I had 76 DMs. Some apologizing. Some furious. One stood out. "Judge Thorne, we were lied to. Can we help you take her down?" That message changed everything. Because suddenly, I had the homeowners on my side. But Carolyn had one last move. The next morning, I found a letter taped to my office door. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, written in red ink. Inside was a single sentence. "Back off, or your secrets go public." I didn't recognize the handwriting. But I recognized the tactic. Desperation. The question was, what secrets did she think I had? Jason's phone rang. It was a reporter. "Someone's trying to leak a story. About you. Something from your past." I stood still. Because I knew exactly what it was. And I wasn't afraid. But I was about to turn the tables. I sat at my desk, staring at the red-inked note. "Back off, or your secrets go public." I'd handled murder trials, political scandals, even cartel-related cases. But this? This felt different. It was personal. And stupid. Because if you're going to blackmail someone, don't choose the judge who helped write the laws on cybercrime. The secret she dug up. Jason called me, still half laughing. "I got the story she tried to leak. You're gonna love this." "What is it?" "She dug up your sealed disciplinary report from 20 years ago, the one where you suspended yourself for not reporting a colleague's misconduct fast enough." I rolled my eyes. "That's the big secret?" Jason laughed again. "You literally confessed in court, took the penalty, and got commended for your honesty. So she wants to shame me for following the rules. Looks that way. She thought she struck gold. Turns out she found your resume. We go on the offensive. Now that we knew what Carolyn was playing at, I decided it was time to stop reacting and start pushing. First, I went public. I gave a televised statement on the courthouse steps. Yes, I made a mistake 2 decades ago. I reported it myself. I took full responsibility. That's what leadership looks like, something the HOA of Oak Haven clearly knows nothing about. Judge admits past mistake. And wins public support. Meanwhile, Jason filed official charges with the Department of Justice against Carolyn for wire fraud, real estate fraud, criminal impersonation, perjury, and obstruction of justice. We weren't just playing defense anymore. We were tearing her house down brick by brick. The homeowners turned on her. Now that they knew the truth, the Oak Haven residents were livid. They had bought homes with dreams, backyards for their kids, quiet streets, friendly neighbors. Instead, they were living in a crime scene. A few homeowners organized a town hall and invited me to speak. I walked into the Oak Haven Community Center to a standing ovation. "I'm not here to evict you," I said. "You didn't do this. But the people who tricked you will be held responsible." A woman raised her hand. "What happens to us now?" I paused. "I can't promise the land battle won't be messy," I said honestly. "But I will fight to make sure you don't suffer because of what they did." The room exploded in applause. Just when I thought the case was airtight, Jason came back with something huge. "She's not the only one," he said, tossing a file onto my desk. Inside were emails between Carolyn and County Zoning Commissioner Thomas Blake. Turns out, he had approved the fraudulent zoning permits. For a price. Multiple wire transfers, each under $9,000 to avoid IRS detection, sent from Riverstone Development to his side business, Blake Construction Services. Carolyn had paid off a government official to bypass inspection and push the development through. This wasn't just HOA fraud anymore. This was federal conspiracy. I bring in the big guns. With new evidence in hand, I contacted the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, a woman named Natalie Kim, sharp as a knife and not afraid to cut deep. I briefed her on everything: the forged documents, the blackmail attempt, the bribed commissioner. Within 48 hours, she opened a federal case and assigned investigators. She even fast-tracked a grand jury hearing. Jason grinned. This just went from a civil mess to a criminal war zone. And I was more than ready. Carolyn finally cracks. Federal agents raided Carolyn's home at dawn. Her Lexus was still warm when they towed it. She was arrested on site. Neighbors filmed it on their phones. The video went viral. HOA president arrested by FBI, built 50 homes on stolen land. At the station, under interrogation, Carolyn folded like wet paper. She confessed to everything. But then she did something I didn't expect. She blamed it all on Thomas Blake. Said it was his idea. Said she was just a puppet. Whether that was true or not didn't matter anymore. Because now they were both going down. But right when things settled, I got a letter from a lawyer. Just as the arrests made national news and people started to believe justice was being served, I got a certified letter. It was from the homeowner's attorney. They were suing me. 50 families. Together. Suing for damages, emotional distress, and failure to disclose property disputes before pursuing federal enforcement. My name, plastered on the same lawsuit as Carolyn's. I sat in my chair, stunned. After everything I did to protect them, they were now trying to destroy me. The certified letter sat on my desk for hours before I opened it again. Class action lawsuit, Oak Haven homeowners versus Judge William Thorne. Allegations of emotional distress. Financial damages. Loss of property value. Retaliation. I blinked in disbelief. The same families I fought for. The same people who clapped for me. Were now dragging me to court. Stabbed in the back. Jason burst into my office with a furious look on his face. They filed what? I handed him the letter silently. He read it, jaw tightening with every word. Unbelievable. After everything Carolyn did, they think you're the bad guy. They think I should have stayed quiet, I said. That if I hadn't spoken up, their houses would still be safe. Jason slammed the papers down. Their houses were never safe. They were stolen. Fear makes people blame the nearest target, I said, standing up. And right now? That's me. Later that night, I found out that one of the people organizing the lawsuit was a man named David Keener, a well-known local real estate agent and one of the first people to buy in Oak Haven. I remembered him from the town hall. Smiled. Asked for a picture with me. He was the one who had posted, "Who is this man?" on Facebook. Now he was accusing me of malicious intent and ruining the community's value for political gain. Worse. Cynthia found out he had applied to be interim HOA president. He didn't want justice. He wanted power. I tried to reason with them. Against Jason's advice, I attended their next private HOA meeting. It wasn't official, the HOA was frozen under federal order, but they were meeting anyway. Whispers stopped as I entered. Some wouldn't look at me. Others glared. I stood at the front, no suit, no title. Just me. I'm not your enemy, I said. I didn't take your money. I didn't forge documents. I didn't scam you into buying homes on land I never sold. Carolyn did. David stood up, arms crossed. And what about now? What are you doing to help us now? I'm working with the U.S. Attorney to recover stolen funds. To try and negotiate relocation aid. He scoffed. Too little, too late. We're stuck. You've got your land back. But what do we get? Someone else shouted, "We want our money." Another yelled, "We just want to live in peace." I waited for the shouting to stop. Then I said, "Then let's work together. Don't take me to court. Sit at the table. Let's fight the system that failed us together." But they didn't want peace. They wanted a payout. And they thought suing me was the fastest way. The lawsuit made headlines the next morning. Judge sued by families he evicted. Chief judge accused of retaliating against HOA community. Is justice worth the price? Even the fair news stations couldn't ignore the noise. And the tabloids? They had a field day. Jason stormed in again, holding 3 magazines. America's Angriest Judge, the man who took 50 homes, and From Justice to Villain. Want me to burn them all? I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care. But because I had a plan. I filed a countersuit. Not against the families, but against David Keener and the shadow legal group backing the homeowners' class action. Why? Because Jason discovered that David had known the development was fraudulent before he moved in. He'd seen the zoning issues, even emailed Carolyn with concerns, which she brushed off. But instead of warning others, he bought 2 more homes under different names. And he flipped them. Made over $280,000 in profit. We had proof. He wasn't a victim. He was a co-conspirator. Then a bombshell from Cynthia. Cynthia rushed into my office late one evening, breathless. I found something. You need to see this. She dropped a thick file on my desk. Inside were internal emails from the real estate firm that handled the first Oak Haven sales. Turns out, the firm had flagged the land title as in dispute before any homes were sold. But instead of pausing, they buried the alert. Why? Because Carolyn offered them priority access to future development zones. They sold faulty properties, knowingly. And the cherry on top. Their compliance officer was David Keener's cousin. Armed with the new evidence, we filed formal charges against the real estate firm, David and Carolyn, all under RICO statutes, racketeering, fraud, and conspiracy. And then I did what no one expected. I offered to settle with the homeowners. The real victims. The ones tricked into moving in, just like I'd been tricked into thinking they were all against me. The settlement proposal. I stood before the community again, this time in court. The judge looked over my proposal. I'm offering a full settlement using funds seized from Carolyn's accounts, David's house sales, and the fraudulent real estate firm. If approved, every family will receive relocation assistance, full reimbursement of purchase costs, legal support for new home financing, and an official apology from the U.S. District Court. Murmurs in the courtroom. The judge nodded. Sounds fair. Do the plaintiffs accept? David's lawyer tried to object, but the families stood. One by one. We accept. But just before it was finalized, Jason's phone buzzed. He picked up, face going pale. He looked at me. You're not gonna believe this. What now? There's a new development going up, across the road from Oak Haven. Same developer name. Riverstone Dev LLC. I froze. Carolyn's in jail, I said. Yeah, Jason replied. But someone else just picked up where she left off. Jason placed his phone on my desk and hit play. A shaky video played, a ribbon-cutting ceremony. A new development entrance sign read. Ridge Point, a Riverstone community. The man holding the scissors. Thomas Blake. The zoning commissioner who'd been indicted months ago. Wearing a suit. Smiling wide. And standing next to him, a woman I'd never seen before. At first glance, she looked like a PR rep. But then Jason pulled up corporate filings. That woman was Monica Raines, CEO of the new Riverstone Dev LLC. And her last name matched the fake judge from the forged land sale. Judge Peter M. Raines. This wasn't just a shady HOA scandal anymore. This was an organized, family-run criminal ring. Uncovering the master plan. Monica wasn't just some pawn. She was the architect. Turns out, she had created the original fake judge ID used in Carolyn's scam. She had dozens of shell companies, each with different addresses and owners, all linked back to her by one common thread. A personal P.O. box in Charleston, South Carolina. She'd been funding Carolyn and Thomas, then dumping them when heat got too high. Ridge Point was just her next move. New land. New victims. Same scam. But this time, she had made one mistake. She built across the street from the wrong man. I call in the feds, again. With Jason's help, I compiled a new case file for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Natalie Kim, the same prosecutor who helped take down Carolyn, met with us that evening. Are you telling me she's still operating under the same company name? She asked, flipping through the documents. Yes, I said. Only now she's gotten smarter. Natalie's eyes narrowed. Then we'll just have to get smarter, too. She greenlit a federal RICO investigation, this time, stretching across 3 states. The charges? Wire fraud. Forgery. Real estate racketeering. Identity fabrication. Tax evasion. Obstruction of justice. It was the largest real estate fraud case in the region's history. And it all started on my land. Justice, in every direction. The FBI raided Monica's company HQ in Charleston 2 weeks later. She was arrested on the spot, in the middle of a meeting with investors. Her reaction? She laughed. Until she saw who signed the warrant. Me. I watched the footage as they cuffed her. Cold. Calculated. No apologies. Just like Carolyn. Just like Blake. But now. They were all done. In the months that followed, every piece of the puzzle fell into place. Carolyn pled guilty to fraud and conspiracy, now serving 7 years. Thomas Blake was stripped of his title and sentenced to 6 years for bribery and zoning corruption. David Keener was fined $1.1 million and banned from real estate for life. The real estate firm lost its license and settled for $5.3 million in damages to the homeowners. And Monica? She got 25 years in federal prison, with no chance of parole. Her empire collapsed. Her shell companies dissolved. And her name? Forever blacklisted. What happened to the families? With the seized assets from the ring, the federal government issued full refunds for all Oak Haven homeowners. Paid relocation for anyone who wanted to move. And legal aid for securing new housing. More than half of the residents chose to stay. They voted to turn Oak Haven into a real community, one they owned and managed together. And they elected a new HOA president. A single mom named Tamara White who had nearly lost everything, and now fought for everyone. She invited me to the first community cookout. I showed up with hot dogs. She handed me the microphone. I just smiled and said, "Don't ever let someone take your peace and call it progress. This land may be mine, but this community is yours." And me? I returned to the bench 6 months later. Older. Wiser. And with a new respect for how corruption can hide in plain sight. People still ask if I ever think about selling that land. I always say the same thing. Why sell what's already priceless? Because in the end, the land didn't just carry trees and dirt. It carried a story. A lesson. And now, a legacy. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.